everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ben Talks About. I'm, of course, your host, Ben Contreras, and I am here with another video on the Jasper Cat Productions channel in the new year of 2020. And there has been quite a lot of news and different events happening in the year that, lots of people have been, talking about and expressing their opinions about, and I feel like I would like to do the same. And there are two main subjects that I would like to indeed give my word out to. And the very first one is the most relevant out of all of them, and that is the newest character that has been added to the roster of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch. And that character is, of course, the main protagonist of the most recent game in the Fire Emblem series, that is the character Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses. This character's inclusion in the game has, I feel like, sparked a little bit of, not necessarily controversy, but a lot of backlash from the developers. And the main reason is because of the fact that it is playing off of the idea that the Smash Bros. Games, especially now, are sort of oversaturated in the amount of Fire Emblem characters that there are in the game. And as of right now, the only two rosters that have more Fire Emblem characters than, out of all the other series that are presented is the Mario series and the Pokemon series. Now, I do understand why people would be upset about this, especially considering this is a DLC character, and the previous characters that have been announced and released thus far have all been from third-party developers, characters that aren't made by Nintendo, and as a result are able to, have their series more in the spotlight. After all, being a character in Smash Brothers is sort of like the magnum opus when it comes to being a game developer, especially nowadays with, games like Undertale and Cuphead being represented by Mii costumes. The fact that you'll be able to get your very own character as a playable character in the game, that's a huge honor. And lately we've had characters like Joker from Persona 5, all of the protagonists from the Dragon Quest series as alternate costumes for the most recent character. We've also gotten Banjo-Kazooie, a character that has been long isolated until finally being brought back on the Nintendo console since the N64 way back in the 90s. And then we also got characters like Terry Bogard from the King of Fighters and Fatal Fury series. And then finally we got the character Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses. And, one of those characters is definitely not like the other, Byleth sort of, stands out among all the other characters who, like I said before, were all made by third parties, and then here comes this new Nintendo-based character joining the roster and representing a series that many people say is still sort of oversaturated in the amount of characters there are, especially considering the fact that every single one of them have a sword as their main weapon, which, it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, it kind of feels like there was likely going to be some sort of representation of Fire Emblem Three Houses in this game, considering it is the most recent one in the series and has been one of the best-selling ones in the series so far, but considering the fact that, half of the series was in Japan for the longest time, and, it wasn't until Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS many years ago that the series finally got back on track, especially over in the West. And also considering the fact that after Fire Emblem Fates came out, the series was a bit more of a lower ground, I guess you could say, compared to the other Nintendo franchises. Like, for example, we got games like Echoes, which was a remake of the second Fire Emblem game. We also never got a Fire Emblem game on the Wii U, with the exception of the characters in the Tokyo Mirage, which isn't really much of a Fire Emblem game. And then we of course got Fire Emblem Heroes, which was a mobile game, but you know how mobile games are, especially with the kind of games that, you have to summon characters in order to have more of the game, and then you also have the option of spending real life money on it, which is never really a good idea. And then, of course, Fire Emblem Warriors came out for the Switch, which absolutely nobody remembers. And then it wasn't until Three Houses came out that the series finally got, it came like back from, I guess you could say, the darkness of all the other Nintendo franchises. So while I'm not mad that Nintendo represented Three Houses in this game, it does kind of feel like they should have made it as more of a, I guess you could say, a visual representation, like the Three Houses stage that Byleth comes with. That's perfectly fine. Give some sort of representation like that, but you probably shouldn't like make one of the slots for a DLC character one for a series that already has a lot of representation in the game to begin with. But as we also saw at the end of that Nintendo Direct, we are going to be getting more DLC characters along the road. I believe they said either 6 or 7 more we're going to be released as DLC. So it is likely that we are going to get more third-party representation before we get another character from Nintendo themselves. So whether or not that actually happens is up for time to decide. And so that was it for the most relevant out of all the news that has been here thus far. And the next one is a bit more, late to the party, considering the movie came out, I believe, last year. And it hasn't been till recently until I saw it. And that is, of course, the most recent film in Disney's science fantasy series Star Wars, with the 9th film in the series, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, since this film got released, it got a sort of mixed reception from most people, and I could sort of understand why. I mean, when I saw the film, I personally did enjoy it, but after really looking into it and seeing what other people had to say about it, I do kind of feel like a lot of the plot points in the film were sort of made to retcon and contradict stuff that was already put into place with the, not so well received previous film, which was, of course, The Last Jedi. And while I don't really feel like any of these films are necessarily bad movies, I can definitely say that The Rise of Skywalker, it was probably on my lesser favorite list of the new Disney Star Wars movies. It did kind of feel like a lot of the stuff that they established in this most recent film, like I said, was there to just retcon, a lot of the things that were already established in the previous movie. For example, the main protagonist Rey being related to a character we already know, instead of her coming from, no one really significant to the rest of the series, and other things like giving the side characters even more relationships with other characters, rather than expanding upon what they had on the relationships that have already been established. For example, with Finn and other characters like, unfortunately, Princess Leia, who, it did kind of feel like she didn't have a whole lot to do in the movie, but that was mostly because of the unfortunate death of Carrie Fisher during the filming of the Last Jedi, which, rest in peace, by the way. But yeah, it did kind of feel like they had a lot of really good ideas in the movie. For example, the way they portrayed Kylo Ren in the film, and making him pretty much the most tragic character in this new sequel series trilogy of films. The series is called the Skywalker Saga, and all of these Skywalkers in these movies go through some sort of tragedy, and makes them the type of heroes that they are. And while Kylo Ren is definitely on the more evil side out of all the Skywalkers, it is really nice on how he's sort of able to, in a way, redeem himself. I mean, he did sort of, cause the destruction of several planets and killed several people. But considering this is Star Wars we're talking about, where pretty much any sort of evil villain can be redeemed in some sort of way, they can do it if they believe hard enough. Um, it is still it is still somewhat satisfying to see him in the end of the movie, do what he does. And, still the action was good, the acting itself was really good, and, some of the new characters were sort of interesting. And of course the fact that there's literally a droid in the film called Dio, which, has already spawned a bajillion different JoJo's Bizarre Adventure memes already. But yeah, I can sort of understand. Like I said, I can understand why people don't really think so fondly of this film, especially for those who are able to defend films like The Last Jedi for what it established, and the fact that this film sort of throws it under the rug in order to appeal to the fans that didn't really like that movie, which is more than likely was the majority of the fan base, but now it kind of feels like since this film has come out, that's become the minority of the fan base, since now people are sort of able to look at The Last Jedi and the things that it tried to establish, and, give it more of a positive light. That's a good thing, but unfortunately that's sort of put this film even below that one, which, I don't really feel like is sort of fair to this movie, since it was recently just released, and it had a lot of stuff already on its shoulders, considering this is the last of the whole trilogy of trilogy movies that they've had so far, and whether or not we're going to get more numbered movies is sort of up for debate. I feel like this is kind of going to be the end of the numbered Star Wars movies for at least a little while. Probably not as much of a gap compared to Episode 3 to The Force Awakens, but I do feel like it would be best if the series was more gearing towards spin-off films, like what they did with Rogue One and the Han Solo movie and the upcoming Obi-Wan movie, and of course the Mandalorian show, which people seem to really love. I feel like it's definitely best for them if they sort of take a step back from the main story and focus more on side stories for the upcoming films. Even though I do feel like this sequel trilogy of movies was pretty good for what it was. It's Star Wars for a more modern audience. And so overall, yeah, I would definitely like to hear your opinions on both of these type of subjects. If you have a certain opinion about Byleth being announced for the next DLC character, or, well, actually, they've already been released, so, yeah. And if you have other, like, a different sort of opinion on, the Rise of Skywalker, and whether you agree or not with my personal opinion on that, make sure to tell me that in the comment section down below. I'd really love to, hear your overall feelings towards it. And if you like these type of videos where I take these different sort of I guess you just say news related content on this channel, where I sort of talk about it all in one video, make sure to tell me in the comment section down below. And if you like the video, all that other sort of stuff that you do with YouTube channels nowadays. But until I see you all next time, I'm Ben Contreras, and bye.